Now, time to go through the morning's papers. Here with me today to review the papers are Mariana Hotter and Matthew Stadlen. So very good morning to both of you. Lovely to see you bright and early this morning. And in this hour, as usual, we're going to deal with some of the front pages that are around. And Matthew, you picked out the Times front page to kick us off. And this is focusing on the fourth night of riots across France now. The riots that started in a suburb of Paris have spread across the country, haven't they? And the Times is going with the advice to UK tourists now changing.
Yeah, and this is big on the Telegraph front page as well. So there's a British angle, which we could probably address first, and that is that the Foreign Office has given what appears to me to be common sense advice to travellers. Don't forget, France is our most popular destination after Spain for travel, for holidays, for Brits. Foreign Office, and I'll read it out, why not? The Foreign Office advice for visitors to France says some local authorities may impose curfews. Locations and timing of riots are unpredictable, obviously. You should monitor the media, avoid areas where riots are taking place, check the latest advice with operators when travelling, and follow the advice of the authorities. Now, of course, that advice may change in the coming days. President Macron, for his part, he's been chairing the equivalent of Cobra meetings in recent days. He's resisted so far a state of emergency. I think the last time that happened in France was the race riots in 2005. If there is a state of emergency, then there would be really draconian measures available. But yeah, France looks like it's up in flames again. This is after the shooting of a 17-year-old by police. The trouble in the suburbs and the banlieue are coming into the sort of fashionable, trendy centres. It's a very big and important difference between France and Britain, I think. We are much more mixed together as a society than the French are, and possibly that is playing into the trouble.
Well, yes, and as we say, spreading across the country into lots of major cities overnight, and no sign that the anger is abating. So we'll see where that takes us. But let's move on to another story, shall we, Marianne? Because there are quite a few different stories on the front pages today, and you're going with the Daily Mail's front page, and this is changes to how dentists work.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. So at the moment, 2/3 of dentists who are trained in the NHS leave straight after qualifying, and they leave to go and work in private practice where, as a patient, I have to pay private fees for my treatment rather than the NHS banded fees. Now, Rishi Sunak is saying this is a problem, obviously, partly because of the hundreds of thousands of pounds being spent on training those dentists by the taxpayer, which then leak into private practice rather than us recouping the value of that investment, as it were, in the people. But also because we've got dental deserts. There are certain places in the East Midlands, in the North East and Yorkshire, where there is one NHS dentist available for 13,000 potential NHS patients, which obviously means that people can't get dentist appointments, which means that either they are putting off routine appointments or actually necessary treatment. They're having to dig deep to find the money to go private. Many people can afford it, many people absolutely cannot. And then you get those horror stories of people doing DIY dentistry because they literally cannot afford the private practice. They do not have access to an NHS dentist because there are none of them in their local region or community. And so, you know, it's them and a hammer and a mate with a chisel, which is horrific, bearing in mind that we're in 2023. So Rishi Sunak's plan is to keep dentists, to tie them in, basically, for a certain period of time after they train. So they have to stay giving NHS treatment before they're allowed to then shift to private practice exclusively. The dental representative organisations have said this is basically handcuffing dentists to a sinking ship, and that actually Rishi Sunak needs to, or the government more broadly, needs to address the reasons why young dentists are fleeing the NHS as quickly as possible rather than forcing them to stay, you know, actually address the issues at root. And that, they say, is basically the payment bands, the government contract for dental work doesn't cover the costs of the work that the dentists actually have to do. And then, of course, we live in a capitalist society, and so when there's loads of money over there for doing half the work that you could do over here, people make that choice.
Well, yes, and Matthew, quick thought on this, because it does feel like something's not going right as far as dentistry is concerned for the public.
There's the political angle and then there's the personal angle. The political angle is it seems extraordinary. I'm not saying he's wrong to do it, but it seems extraordinarily unconservative thing for a Conservative Prime Minister to be doing. In other words, sort of bonding people to the state. On a personal level, I think this highlights a big hole, no pun intended, in our healthcare system in this country. People, as Marianne was saying, just simply cannot afford to get their teeth sorted.
But good news, these changes are being made.
One hopes.
OK, let's move us on, Matthew, to the front of The Guardian next. And they have gone with the resignation yesterday of Zac Goldsmith, attacking Rishi Sunak's climate policies, or his approach to climate, rather, on his way out.
Yeah, now, this is an absolutely massive story. It's no surprise it's on the front page of The Guardian, who probably seem to care a bit more about the environment than certain other papers, but it's a huge story politically because Lord Goldsmith, he was a massive ally of Boris Johnson. Cynics will say, and indeed the Prime Minister is suggesting in a very blunt reply to this resignation letter, that the reason Goldsmith is stepping aside is because he doesn't want to apologise over the criticism he received by the Privileges Committee this week. Why were they criticising him? Because he criticised the committee in their approach to Boris Johnson investigation that they were doing, that found that the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, had deliberately misled Parliament on multiple occasions. Goldsmith says this is not why he's resigning. The reason he's resigning is there for all to see in his resignation letter, and it's a very unusually stinging resignation letter, and I really suggest to viewers that they read it. I've been reading it in the inside pages in The Guardian, and it says in no uncertain terms that the British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, simply doesn't care. He's not interested in the environment. And remember that he's got 5 pledges. The environment, as Goldsmith points out, doesn't feature in those 5 pledges. And he is saying that Sunak is rowing back from really important planks in our capacity as a country to lead the world and change for the good on the environment and the natural world.
Well, yes, and Rishi Sunak's hit back at that accusation, hasn't he, and said, absolutely,
indeed,
the climate means a lot to me. He says the UK's played a leading role globally, and the government is always keen to say we've got really tough targets and we intend to meet them. And some might say that Zac Goldsmith is a Johnson ally, and he's taking a swipe at his rival.
And that's where the politics lie. But Goldsmith, let's be clear, is not the first person to criticise Sunak's lack of interest in the environment.
OK, and Marianne, take us on to The Telegraph, will you? Because they are talking about a potential deal with Italy on migrants.
Yeah, of the priorities that Sunak is juggling, this possibly looms larger at the moment than the environment. We can discuss whether that's a good thing or not. So he has instigated talks to establish a strategic migration partnership with Italy, which would basically mean working more closely between the two nations, joint operations, intelligence sharing about people smuggling, and to help Italy negotiate a returns agreement, that's what it's called, with Tunisia, which is where most of the people coming in small boats to Italy over the Mediterranean waters are coming from. So far, 62,000 people have reached Italy in sometimes very unseaworthy boats. Of course, we've seen the tragedy off the waters in coastal the Greek coastal waters just earlier, a few days ago, with a terrible loss of life. So 62,000 people have reached Italy so far this year. That's up from the 2022 figures of about 25,000 by this time last year. So the question for the UK is, if more people are reaching Italy, then ultimately do those people come to the border of France and then attempt to cross the Channel? So this all plays out in the context of the Court of Appeal rejecting the legality of the UK sending people to Rwanda to have their asylum claims processed there. And the fear is that will embolden people smugglers to either force or sell their offer to very vulnerable migrants to say, hey, look, they're embroiled with the law, you're not going to get sent to Rwanda, so, get in the boat. which
Okay.
is obviously tragic for the migrants who are risking their lives.
Okay, we are out of time. It's an issue we're going to return to time and time again, I know. But Marianne and Matthew will be back in the next hour. Thanks both very much indeed.